Kate, is still surreal to me. I'm quite new into this role as the communities lead of Doughnut Economics Action Lab, or DEAL. And so sort of 3 months in, we kind of started as lockdown hit. And so we've been building this team, this small team with just 6 people now in this very strange time. But what is so incredible is the amount of energy, the amount of interest in applying the ideas and the principles and concepts of the donut across the world in so many different contexts, that it's just such an exciting time for us as a team, and it's really wonderful to be here this morning speaking with friends and other people from Devon, where I've spent the last 18 months. So I joined the Schumacher course, Economics for Transition, back in August 2018, had a wonderful 12 months there, and then stayed for another 6 months around Totnes, doing further work and beginning to step out into the world again. And so yeah, I just feel really incredibly privileged to be in this position where I can work with the ideas and concepts of Doughnut Economics and then bring them to communities. So what I've got is a presentation, a few slides to take you through a few of the things Kate just mentioned, but hopefully in a slightly higher resolution, and then a few examples of things that are happening in Amsterdam, and then a few questions to leave you with. So this is an initial presentation, but the session later is a workshop where everyone's going to be able to connect and work in small breakout rooms to start kind of making the connection straight away. You know, Jay said we don't have to wait. We can start tomorrow. Well, I might even say we can start this afternoon. So starting with the donut and deal. So the donut, it was an idea that Kate sort of brought to the world initially through Oxfam in 2012, and then iterated to what we see here, which was released with her book in 2017. It's kind of caught light and spread around the world, and inspired people to apply it to so many different places and contexts and scales, and it sort of pops up in so many different places. It really is a joy to be on social media channels and to see it pop up in a different place, and be almost surprised every single day with the amazing creative ways in which people are able to extend its use and apply it in wonderfully imaginative ways. And so what we're doing with Doughnut Economics Action Lab, our purpose is to enable these people, enable the people who want to apply this idea in many different contexts, enable them with tools and with to equip these different processes and stories of use to inspire further action. So it's what we aim to do is, next slide, we are creating a online collaborative platform. On the left-hand side, you can see the mobile homepage, and it's about turning these ideas from the idea but into transformative action. We've got 5 theme areas, and to each of these we will have a lead. So we're going to be a small team, but hopefully the idea is we are amplifiers of the amazing work that's already happening here. We are not going to be the source of the work. We're simply going to listen, and we're going to learn from the amazing communities, amazing cities and regions and organizations and educators and governments. Listen to them, work with those who have made pioneering new work, and then amplify that. So the rest of the growing community of people working around these ideas can then learn from each other and be inspired. Kate showed this wrapping paper when she was saying how all of the different places are showing interest. And this for me is kind of is a great articulation of what drew me to this work, is that it kind of provides an incredibly flexible framework, a holistic framework bringing together the social and the ecological, but also a framework which can be applied in so many different scales and so many different colors and contexts. But when we're all working within this holistic vision, it provides an unparalleled potential to connect across the different scales, connect across our boundaries, across the sort of lines we have drawn up somehow to say, oh, that's your thing, this is our thing, that's your plan, this is our plan. And actually recognizing, oh, wait, if we're all looking towards this place of thriving in balance, where we're meeting the needs of all people within the means of the living planet, we're part of this same vision, and everything aligns. Yes, we'll see things from different perspectives, and that actually brings greater potential for explorative pathfinding, if you like, bringing the many diverse ways and perspectives and seeing things together. And this is, Kate actually asked the question, what if we could transform the way we govern ourselves, the metrics we live by, into these multiple visions of thriving in a donut? And it's kind of apt that this is wrapping paper, because if we unwrap this, my question for you is, what would this look like? What would a Devon donut look like? What would it feel like? What would it feel like to have this, to be coming together across the existing networks, but inviting everyone in, inviting people who are starting this journey, but maybe those who are yet to consider this? What would that feel like? What would it make you want to do? What would it enable? What would it amplify? What is already going on that this would bring to greater clarity and focus and enhance? Great news is that what has happened in Amsterdam with the organizations you can see along the bottom left there, the sort of circle economy, C40 cities, biomimicry 3.8, that's now been turned into, we've turned that into a methodology, which gets published, I believe, potentially tomorrow. But I probably shouldn't commit to that right now. But we're going through the final edits, and you can see on the right-hand side the sort of the steps that you can take to put your place through this same sort of process. So this is really exciting that the many places that have shown interest since we launched the Amsterdam City Donut they've shown interest, and now this is the first tool that we're enabling, and this we published on Kate's blog. Within this, the 4 key questions that Kate asked on her video that Amsterdam have gone through is, according to these different lenses of the social, the ecological, the local, and the global. What's so powerful about this, applying the donut to a place, is that it starts with what it means for the people of Devon, let's say, to thrive, and what it means for Devon to thrive within its natural habitat. But what's so powerful is when you then think about the interconnectedness of everything, and that what you do has impacts for people and the well-being of people worldwide, and also respecting the well-being of the whole planet. And these are kind of the 4 ways in which the methodology centered, which enables you to get to the donut of your place. And this has been done in Amsterdam. Not only Amsterdam, they're the ones who've gone mainly public, but also Portland and Philadelphia. And when we published the portrait, we've had interest from about 500 cities, but also countries and places around the world. And so this is just to show the breadth of places that are now keen to apply this. And we're so excited that, well, it started with, this is a global North city, we're so excited to have conversations with cities and countries in the global South about how they can apply it and create their own version of this methodology. And if any of you have seen the video of the man dancing on the hill, it's at a festival and there's music playing and one guy is dancing by himself, and then someone else joins in, and then a few other people join in, and then there's something about, there's an infectiousness about this dance, that all of a sudden the whole hilltop is joined in and is dancing. And I kind of feel that this what Amsterdam is doing is that moment. It's that braveness, it's the courage of the person to lead, and then others start following, and it's inspiring further action. And it's amazing to see sort of the hilltop of dancers come to life. And so what they've created is what we call this public portrait. And so you can see these four lenses, these four questions have now turned into these diagrams involving currently available data and aspirational targets. And so I want to just bring to you just a few of the lessons from Amsterdam, a few of the approaches that things they've learned during that process. The first one is kind of who's going to start that dance? And this is a question around who are the change makers that are already asking these questions? Are they, and where are they? Are they within existing institutions? Are they entrepreneurs? Are they community organizers? You know, where are they? Where are they, and how can you connect? And when you connect, how can you create that initial vision? Now, how can you make that vision inviting for others to join? And you know, how do you then create that network of people aligning towards that vision? The second is to hold high standards. And it's amazing that Amsterdam is almost now like a living lab for this process. And this is a tiny screenshot, but it's also is currently available in both the Amsterdam City Portrait, but also the methodology. And these are the 7 Doughnut principles of practice. And they align to the 7 ways of being a 21st century economist, if any of you have read the book or are familiar with the ideas. And the very top one is embracing the 21st century goal. And the aspiration is that any organizations joining the movement towards a doughnut align their purpose with the doughnut and align their networks, who they work with, their governance, their ownership and finance with that same goal. And that's a really hard question, because a lot of people are going to want to, people are going to want to be a part of this process, and within organizations that don't necessarily align to the goal of the doughnut. And we're very conscious that when a radical idea like the doughnut meets sort of business as usual, one thing's going to be transformed, and we don't want it to be us. So this means you're holding very high standards and asking the difficult questions. So one of the challenges is how you create, when you start the dance, how do you create that sort of space where you can ask these questions and have a conversation to see how you do that. And that's what Amsterdam's doing at the moment. And it's an ongoing process. The next one's joining the dots. And it's to say that this isn't creating something that replaces anything. It's a recognition that this is thinking back to the wrapping paper, this is simply recognizing what already exists and enhancing it through a connection, and like a movement of movement, a network of networks. The people who come together here, their work can be mutually enhanced by aligning towards this. And the last is the fact that the portrait, that visual, is just the start of the process. This public portrait, it might be created by the change makers, but how does it then come to life with all people in Devon? How does it act as a guide to action for policy, but also for what are the new, what are the areas of focus for to work on, the new innovations or initiatives that you need to fire up. And so this is the process of creating what Amsterdam are calling a city selfie. And it's where you bring in the lived experience of people. It's where you bring in the stories of what's already happening and the aspirations and perspectives and values of people. You draw the interconnections across different sectors, not across, well, within different sectors. Kate mentioned food, energy, and housing. And yeah, this can act as a policy tool as well. So I guess the thing that's happening now with Amsterdam is that they're going through this very process. They're working out how do you make this happen, and it's a real challenge how you start with a public portrait and then bring it out to everyone. But the thing to emphasize here is that it's not a set defined process that you then follow. You make it yours. You do it in your own way, and so we're very excited to see how the very diverse and unique ways in which places around the world choose to do this in their own way. When I was, as Jay mentioned, when I was on the Economics for Transition course at Schumacher, I was extremely fortunate that on one of the modules, within the space of 10 days, both Rob Hopkins and Kate Raworth came to present. And it was truly inspirational. And they brought their ideas. So Rob was in the latter stages of finalizing the content for his book, from what is to what if. And it was just wonderful to hear those stories of imagination. And Kate came and she shared the donut, but also her creative process. And it was a really amazing moment that they came so close with one following the other, because it kind of left this question for me, which was the space of the donut is incredible vision, but what is it to say like how we get there? What's telling us what is thriving in the space of the donut? It feels to me as though we need an abundance of imagination to be able to move from where we are to a place where we are thriving in the donut. And so I thought the power of bringing these two things would be incredible. So I asked my question, well, what if there was a way to help cultivate the imagination we need to be able to thrive in the donut? And that's what I chose to focus my dissertation on. And it was not only about the imagination we need, but also how we then turn those ideas, that imagination, into action. And it's really exciting to be able to share what I'd worked on there now with you, but also Rob and I have published, finally published what has become the Imagination Sundial. And this is this culmination of that work that I did, inspired by Rob's book and the stories within there, into a sort of design tool, a sort of heuristic for cultivating the collective imagination towards a space in which we can thrive in balance. So what I want to do is just to talk through just a few of these and how they could be relevant as we begin to take those steps. So the first is space, the mental and emotional space that expands our capacity to imagine. And this is really a prerequisite to imagining. If we don't have the space, if we don't have that clearing, nothing new can come through. We're too cluttered and busy and tense and fearful of so many things. We need to slow and open and allow connection with ourselves, each other, the other than human world, to bring through the possibility of what might be. So starting with feeling welcome and feeling safe, feeling welcome to be ourselves, invited to participate with warmth and sincerity. This is really around the art of invitation. And I mentioned those people dancing on the hill, the initial group of people who come together to create the vision of the donut. How do you make that inviting to everyone? Invite people to participate. And how do you make them feel safe? Some people will never feel safe in certain spaces. So how do you acknowledge that, honor that, and almost create that brave space where you acknowledge their courage in being a part of this process? And on day one, there was permission was raised by Amanda as a key thing here, that courage as well, to have permission to get things wrong, but also permission to just go there anyway. And when we give ourselves collectively permission, what can happen? So suspending that inner voice and potentially even that collective voice of judgment and cynicism. So slowing is really allowing allowing the time and the space for this work. Lucy Neal, who is a founder of Encounters Arts, said something that stayed with me, which is, in order to speed up change, we need to slow down. And I feel making the space to slow down will really help us with this work. Opening, making space for something new to emerge by opening our heart and mind and letting go of our self-will. And I don't know about any of you, but I have a real challenge with letting go of things when I'm really kind of sure that this is the right way to do things. And actually, if we let go of that, just suspend that and see what else might come through, it can be incredible. And connecting. And this is where sort of bringing in the lived experience of people, bringing in past and future generations and connecting to the other than human world, the wild land next door is so valuable. Expanding and sort of welcoming the awareness of things beyond ourselves. Moving to place, these are the gathering places that that people need to come together to imagine together, and sort of revitalizing these collective spaces, the commons where we can come together. Amsterdam is having to do all this virtually. They're having to find ways to use these clever online collaborative tools to do this during a time of lockdown. But when lockdown ends, how can you design spaces and places for people to come together in all of these different scales, from the street scale to the local to the civic? They're out in the woods, by the river, and how you can maybe redesign your workplaces to design them for connection and collaboration, exploration, creation, chance encounter. There's so much potential there. Moving on to practices, inspiration is the first one that I want to draw because it's so alive with what's happening with the Doughnut. We have what happened with Amsterdam and the interest that ignited from that really told us it's so powerful when people hear stories of people like themselves doing things that they hadn't thought was possible. So when cities see Amsterdam's doing it, they think, well, why not? Why, that can be us too. And so I guess that can be scaled to any scale. So how do we bring that to life in our communities? How do we show people from all different backgrounds, of all different perspectives, all different cultures, that there are people like them doing things that they didn't think was possible, making connection across boundaries that they didn't think was possible either. The limits, well, that's inherent within the Doughnut. Having an inner social foundation and a planetary boundary, you're operating within these two boundaries. These are constraints that we have to operate within. And some people say to Kate, well, how can we operate that way when it's so constrained? And actually these limits are widely acknowledged to unleash the imagination. These creative constraints really expand our creativity. Making is such an important one to get us out of our heads and into our hearts. And when we're using our hands, it can be wonderful. When we're using it together, when we're making together, I think incredible things can happen. And it's kind of when you're transforming things through making, I think something's changing inside yourself and collectively as well. So these are wonderful practices to do. And playing is so powerful because it makes the imagined real in our minds. And when the imagined becomes real in our minds, then it's just a matter of time before it becomes real in practice. And how do you create spaces for play in order to make things real? Celebrating is a wonderful way to galvanize diverse groups according to the place and shared values, and create that sense of collective coherence. And yes, and what if are such powerful words. It's really easy to jump into the yes, but when we're facing so many challenges. But I think it's just worth practicing, when you hear yourself say the word but, to recognize, let's just suspend that and see what might happen. What if? And then moving into pacts, the pacts of collaboration that catalyze imagination into action. And these are slightly different to the other segments because these are the different groups of people that need to come together to work together and to collaborate and cooperate, recognizing that no individual personal group can make this work by themselves. And it's by bringing all of the strengths and qualities from all of these different people, the energy and the resources from all these different ones together, that you recognize what is possible, and that it's on no individual area to deliver that change. So it's not a case of relying on one and everyone else sits back. It's recognizing we all bring something to this change. And so how do you create this ways of working where everyone is bringing their equal voice into these conversations? And the catalysts I kind of see as these people starting to dance, the people who are here today, who are raring to go, inspiring individuals and organizations. It's these people who do the inviting, that convene groups and catalyze action, set those initial visions, those sort of fiery visions that other people want to be warmed by, coming to the campfire and being involved and then sharing their stories too. And those people you want to invite are these citizens of diverse experience and lived experience and culture and worldviews and perspectives. And how do you connect across the different formally maybe very different outlooks that people wouldn't have connected otherwise? And so how do you bring these people together to catalyze change as well? So I just offer this to you, as well as the donut, in hope that this could begin to kind of set the imaginative juices running towards what could be a Devon donut. So I just want to leave you with 4 questions, and these are the questions we're going to explore after this session in the breakout rooms. The first question, and sorry, what I'd love to find out is, are actually these the questions you would like to answer? So we've designed the session around these 4 questions, but between now and then, we'd love to hear, are there other things that you'd rather talk about or talk about as well? These are just an invitation and offer to you. So the first one is transformation made visible. How could creating your own Devon donut make visible the momentum already underway in Devon? And from day one, it's quite evident just how many people are here and interested in these things. The momentum is already underway. And so how do we make visible, how might the Devon donut make this visible? And which sectors would most benefit from this initially? The second one is the new paradigm brought to life. This is the one I love. And working with Encounters Arts was so wonderful because they brought things to life through play, the arts, performance, and culture. So how could you bring a Devon donut to life and invite everyone through these things? This one too is just incredible because when we begin to recognize the connections, the interconnections of life, locally, regionally, globally, but also socially and ecologically, and how there's cause and effect and the relationships both ways across all of these, it's really powerful. And so how can, what are the holistic interconnections we recognize, and how could creating a portrait bring diverse groups of people and perspectives together? And then lastly, defining a donut dashboard. So the donut is moving away from the single measure of performance being GDP growth through to a balance of many measures, many metrics, both socially and ecologically. And if you are flying a plane or you're flying a very complex vehicle, you wouldn't want one number to say whether you're doing the right thing. You need this balanced set of measures and metrics in this dashboard, both quantitative but also qualitative, bringing in stories, bringing in the words that people share that are very hard to quantify. So what are the right measures? And so it'd be great for those people who want to have that conversation and share ideas on what would be right for Devon to discuss that. So I will leave it there, and I think now we're going to go to some questions.
Rob, I don't know if you've had, well, I don't suspect you've had any time to look at the chat, but the chat has been on fire as well. So we've had some really good conversation already going on. Cornwall, Devon, Dorset seems to be, well, bridges are being forged there. I am wanting to pick up on a few questions, if you don't mind, from the chat. And do keep them coming in, everybody, if you want to. There's definitely space for that. Let me see. I thought this was quite interesting from Sam Hammond. First time I've heard of Doughnut Economics, though I'm familiar with circular economy. Are there any differences, any key differences in these two approaches, so circular economy versus the donut? And given that circular economy is not a new concept, why has it, or is it taking so long for change to happen? Can the donut help speed up the process of change?
What a great... I've actually seen people connect Doughnut Economics and the circular economy by kind of drawing an arrow around the donut, showing the circularity. They are very connected. If you look at the 7 ways to be a 21st century economist, one of them is design to regenerate. And that's what the circular economy is doing. Instead of take, create, and dispose, you're closing that loop and then bringing the material and the energy back into to circularity. So there's less waste and less energy required to start that transformation process. And so, yeah, the 2 key design principles within Doughnut Economics is design to regenerate and design to be distributive. So I'd say that's where Doughnut Economics is bringing that extra element in as well, the distributive nature. And the goal itself, I mean, the circular economy, I don't know whether it has an explicit goal, but the goal of the donut is recognizing that you're thriving with and in balance within all of these planetary boundaries and the social needs as well. So it's it's providing a larger frame of sort of economic framing for the design principles of a circular economy.
Yes, so the regenerative aspect and the redistribution aspect seem to be really standing out there for me. I'm looking at Jay. Jay, have you picked up any other burning questions?
Well, as you said, the chat has been on fire. And I'm reading through and also, you know, typing things too. There's a lot of comments in here about, yes, but we need to get people active. Yes, but we how do we influence these other people? And yes, but how do we influence the people within local government? And where's the hubs and where are the networks? And I suppose you've answered some of that already in your talk, but maybe you could just sort of you know, give us some ideas about how we can begin to congeal what you've said into real action.
Yeah, so the one of the key questions I took into my own research was, how do you begin to catalyze action? And you're confronted with a wall of yes buts, and yes buts are really, really good questions, because yes buts are recognizing an obstacle. They're recognizing that can't work. Why? Because this is clearly a challenge, and this specific thing I can't quite see the way around, or can't see how it could work. You know, how are we going to get around that? And so how do you catalyze the action towards a possible solution? And my conclusion was that action inspires further action. Now, action instills belief, and so I would say start and suspend the but and actually change that to an and say, just what if? Just what if we did this? What if we did that? And actually do that as a group of people, because one what if inspires another what if inspires another what if, and having these conversations just ignite potential. And you can then bring many perspectives. So that obstacle that you're looking, when you're all looking around it from the many different angles, all of a sudden you can, if that works, then it can instill belief and further action. So it's a really hard question, but I'd say that's my suggestion.
Okay, we've got another question here that is going to be maybe a little more challenging to answer. This comes from David Hawes, who is an urban designer, and he says, in reference to Amsterdam experience, everywhere has seen rapid change and intervention in response to COVID, but over a much longer period of opportunity, we have failed to respond as urgently to the climate crisis. What tangible physical changes in the design of places do you see the Doughnut methodology bringing about, for example, in streets, homes, infrastructure, social spaces, retail, high streets, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I would say opening, as I mentioned, opening places for gathering is an amazing first step, because when people gather, then it's almost, and you create these spaces invitationally, so everyone feels welcome to come and share their ideas. It's almost impossible to then stop people from seeing opportunity and potential and transforming a place. So I wouldn't say it's like up to one group of people to kind of transform the place. You open the spaces and invite people, and then things will just start happening. A great example of this is in Dagenham and Barking. And Jay, I know that we've spoken about this to quite a large degree. The Participatory City organization is just doing fantastic work there. They have the largest makerspace in the UK, maybe Europe, and people come together and are invited to do all kinds of making and playing and learning, and the connections they form they organically then turn into these groups of residents and these communities who then start transforming their streets, start transforming their parks, start asking for permission to close the streets and turn them into places for play and community gathering. And I think it's a process of maybe those who currently have the responsibility for changing places, for letting go once you've made the spaces for people to gather, and then making that space for others to do that transforming.
Rob, good answer. I've got another tough question for you.
Yeah, me too.
Can I go first?
For sure.
I had to scroll and scroll and scroll in this chat to find this question, but I think it's a really pertinent one. Loads of talk about new approaches to economics, politics, social change, but it feels that nature, ecology, and local environment is being forgotten somewhat in this narrative. Also, the data and information required to underpin a local donut has not been discussed at all. Is the local donut an evidence-based approach, or more about a conceptual approach with the main focus on the discussion, i.e. underpinned by robust local data and information?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's a really amazing question on data. So we have a data lead within Deal. He did his PhD on the national donuts. If you look up or search Leeds Good Life, you'll find the website which shows the data for different nations around the world, and you can see how well different nations are doing. If you look at Costa Rica, they're very close to being within the donut, but no country is yet in the donut. And so it's kind of one of his challenges to work with places of all scales to bring data to life, bring the donut to life through data, and it really must be measured. Otherwise, how do we know how well we're doing? Amsterdam have drawn upon data that is available globally from many different places, but also recognizing they have their own data locally. So it's very important to get the right data that has the context of the place. And one of the things around data is it only exists for things that have been decided need to be measured in the past. But that shouldn't restrict what we measure in the future. And I think if whoever goes into the group later to discuss what a donut dashboard should be, don't be limited by existing data. Dream about what you want to be able to measure. And then once you create the demand, the data will follow. And maybe that's easier said than done, but it makes sense to me at least. And so I would say that we're beginning this journey of how we create this process of finding the data for places of all different scales. But I think forming the connections across many different institutions, authorities, businesses, civil society organizations, and beyond will unearth data that is available that we potentially didn't realize was there already. And Jay, there was an opening question relating to oversight of or ignoring potentially the ecology. I don't know if I didn't quite catch whether that was.
I think my interpretation of the question is, and I'll just put it in my sort of casual vernacular. There's a lot of blather about new economic models and this community approach, that community approach. If we take a step back and realize what needs to be done, we need to regenerate and protect our environmental, our ecological systems, because they're the ones, these systems are being compromised and destroyed, and those are the things that support us. That is the web of which we're a part. So
absolutely. And if I were just to speak to that, it's something that really in Schumacher is so front and center. It's an ecological college. It's ecological economics. We start in the woods. We start by looking at how the forest or how the woodlands organize, and it just that reconnection with the land, with the woodlands, with the river, with the place was really part of what unlocked my imagination of what economics could be. And economics just needs to get out the way. We say it's own economics, but that's, I don't know, it could be called anything really. But I would say that it's that how do we reconnect? How do we reconnect with there's very much an us and them, us and the habitat, viewing ourselves as separate. How do we just rekindle this connection so we recognize that we're just part of this web of life, and that we have this on day one. Amanda mentioned economics and ecology as having a similar kind of root words in the Greek. Economics being oikos, nomos, the norms of management of the oikos of our home, and ecology being the sort of the logos, the knowledge of home. So that we have the management of home, we have the knowledge of home, and we need the ecology, we need the love of, we need the knowledge of home to be able to manage it. Well, I would say what's missing there is the love of home. Where's the sort of the agape of the oikos? Where's the sort of the deep connection? And if we act from that place of knowledge and love of home, then the management just becomes obvious.
Yeah, that really fits with what we've heard a lot during the few days before around it being so important that we get the identity back into our place, and the sub-identities, and what makes our place our place. And that's a way of connecting people across, and that's crossing divides between people. And it's nice that there's a divide also being crossed, because Amsterdam is my hometown, so it's fun. It's fun to see that divide crossed here as well. Jay, I'm just looking at the time. Are we good on schedule for things?
Was this going till 11:15?
I think we can take it till 11:15. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you have a question?
Well, I guess my My question would be, and it's a bit amalgamated from the chat, what is the opportunity as we are a rural county? And I'm understanding we might need a big rural donut with smaller donuts in the donut. But what's the opportunity? Is there a sense, just from Rob's experience, Amsterdam's obviously a very urbanized city, and also the Netherlands is a very urbanized country. What is the opportunity that we have here with our green hills and our rivers and our national parks?
I would say that's for you to find out. There's no answer that we can provide here. What's so exciting is that this is the first time we're talking about this on a call.